What's your creepiest glitch in the Matrix or unexplainable thing that's ever happened to you? Around 12 years old I was watching Megas XLR, or something that was on at the time. Sitting there I noticed that the sun just turned off, like completely. I was real confused, opened the blinds and it was dark. Show was still at the same spot, but the clock on the cable box said it was 5 hours later. My best guess for what happened was that I passed out without realizing it, like those nights where you lay in bed and blink and suddenly it's morning. So I'm guessing I fell asleep sitting up, for exactly enough time to have Cartoon Network play a rerun of the show get to the exact spot I fell asleep at. Was surreal though. I think you just fell into a light sleep. Sometimes when I'm in the passenger seat of a car on a long drive I'll fall asleep listening to the radio. When I wake up, it feels like I didn't even sleep, and I can remember everything that was on the radio, but the other person in the car is certain I sleep. I snore. The entire world have slowed down for me a couple of times in my life. My best guess is some kind of adrenaline spike causing my brain to go into overdrive. I was walking my dog and I was almost to the driveway when I looked down for some reason and I looked back up and I ended up being back at the road about 6 blocks away from where I thought I was. I was so confused but my dog looked completely fine. For your information I don't drink or do drugs. I'm still pretty young. 6 blocks, that's freaky. If it was just a few meters I probably would chop it up to not paying attention or something, but that's intense. I remember driving my car to this intersection in this rural area and I'm checking both sides because of terrible blind spots. In the corner of my eye my mother is sitting there and says something like it's all clear my way. I look back and she isn't there. My mother had been dead for a few years at this point. This was also in the middle of the day and I've never had it happen since. I actually think that is lovely. I hope you found this heartwarming rather than scary. Sorry for your loss. I was driving about 50 miles per hour, and a car ran a stop sign on an on-ramp and pulled out right in front of me. I remember bracing for impact and then I was about 300 yards down the highway and I saw the car at the ramp in my rear view, just about to pull out. You died on the spot and your mind is living an alternate timeline. A total of 3 times in my life I have had memories of seeing movie trailers that hadn't been made yet. It's not even a feeling of déjà vu, it's a clear vivid memory of seeing the movie before. I've never spoken to someone who has also had this with movies. It's so weird feeling like I've seen movies before they come out. Happens to me most often with movie trailers, and I'm talking years difference in time between them being made and when I saw them earlier. Very odd. I had just pulled into the parking lot of where I worked and was walking towards the building. It was like 3 in the afternoon, broad daylight. All of a sudden, I heard an ambulance's siren start sounding. Naturally, I looked down the road to try and see the ambulance. I see it approaching and decided to watch it for a bit. It was quickly getting closer, and it was about to pass right by me. However, there was a large SUV waiting to turn out of the parking lot and onto the road, blocking a few meters of the road from my view. The ambulance passed behind the SUV, probably about 50 feet away from me at most, and I vividly remember the siren becoming completely silent in that instant. The ambulance had vanished entirely as it passed behind that SUV. I was so confused. The road did not have many cars on it at the time, and it was broad daylight. I did a triple take and made sure that I didn't just miss it. I had a clear view of the road going both directions, and there was no more ambulance to be seen. No more siren either. I walked up and down the road, trying to find it for a solid minute, but nope, it was gone. I was well rested, not on drugs, and I didn't have a history of hallucinations. It seems dismissible, but I was completely aware of what happened, and I can't explain it to this day. I was reading Kurt Vonnegut's last book, Timequake, and had put it in my backpack to read while on the bus. I left the house and for some reason about a block later I thought to myself, did I put the book in my bag? I looked and it wasn't there. Went back to the house and couldn't find it. Retraced my steps to where I turned around and it was nowhere to be found. I never found the book again, and gave up on trying to get another copy. I think it was Vonnegut's way of telling me it wasn't worth the read. More likely Vonnegut's way of getting you to buy another copy. When the song The Final Countdown was released in the 80s, I already knew it. It was brand new, just released. but I knew the tune and the words and could sing the whole thing beginning to end. I believed for a while that it was a cover version, but it wasn't. I don't know if it's true, but I remember my father, who was a kid in the 80s, telling me that the final countdown was released and wasn't successful, but then released again a year later and that's when it exploded. That would explain that. I was working on my motorcycle in a dirt lot where I had crashed it trying to do a sick drift, breaking off the clutch lever and the gear shifter. I had brought a wrench set with me and I was using one of them to take off a bolt when I put it down on the ground to finish unscrewing the bolt with my hand. 2 minutes later I went to pick it back up and it was gone. I ran all around this dirt lot looking for it to no avail. Luckily I had a spare in the car, fixed the bike and drove back to my apartment to shower as I was filthy. I walked in my room and sitting on my desk was the wrench. I was dumbfounded. 10mm. That happens all the time. This summer I bought my girlfriend a last-minute birthday trip to go kayaking around the San Juan Islands off the Washington state coast. After a long drive and ferry trip, we found the tour group of about 20 people and were then shuffled into a shuttle van for a ride to the beach. Now, my girlfriend has a unique name similar to the name of a famous painter. Let's say it's Rebecca Warhol just for fun. It's not. She's a little ray of sunshine, and started chatting with the middle-aged woman sitting next to her on the shuttle as we waited to leave. The woman noted that she had always loved the name Rebecca, as it was her mother's name. They made pleasant small talk in the van until the tour guide passed around the sign-in sheet for all of us to fill out. That's when things got strange. My girlfriend wrote her full name on the sheet and passed it on to the woman, who immediately shouted "Oh my god," and started crying. After a few minutes of total confusion, she told us Rebecca Warhol was my mother's full name, and these islands were her favorite place in the world. She passed away this summer from cancer and we've traveled hundreds of miles to spread her ashes here. We were stunned. I literally picked a random date, time, and to accompany, and then we were split into the same group as this woman and my girlfriend was sitting right next to her on the shuttle. What the heck? She continued by saying, "My daughter told us that Nana Rebecca would be with us on this trip, and I didn't believe it until now. It was the most unbelievable coincidence we had ever experienced, and has totally convinced me that there's more to this world than we think." As my brother later said, the universe winked at us that day. I don't personally remember this, but I would see my dead grandfather all the time when I was a kid. From the ages of 7-9 there was probably 10 different incidents. My dad was an absolute pansy when it came to ghosts, which I don't really believe in, and wanted to take me to the doctor. My dad had one of those bathrooms with a separate toilet room and no one that lived in the house closed the bathroom door unless they were bathing. I was playing RuneScape and my dad asked why the bathroom door was closed, and I said it's because grandpa's in there. That's the only one I actually remember. There was maybe 2 other bathroom incidents and some incidents when I would sit on the floor and watch TV with my dad and he would tell me to go sit in what was once my grandfather's chair and said I couldn't because grandpa was sleeping. I don't know how creepy these are tbh, but they freaked out my family for sure. My wife passed away a year ago today. Had some odd things happen, like a couple of old meaningful pictures show up that I swore were in storage. The strangest one was I vacuumed the carpet and as soon as I was done a diamond ring was on the ground right where I had just cleaned. It was like she was saying, "Hey, this one is real, don't lose it. This one is really lovely. I'm sorry for your loss. I hope finding these things brought back some wonderful memories." Every time I drop something and it literally disappears to nothingness. Like WTF. I have a jade Buddhist necklace I bought in China about 10 years ago. It disappears for months at a time only to reappear somewhere obvious like my desk, my dresser, in a drawer I use every day. I just say it goes on a trip and will come back eventually. When I was living with my parents, my dad was cleaning out one of his drawers and found a piece of paper with a postcode for a nearby city on. When he showed me, I immediately recognized it as my own handwriting, except I have no memory of ever writing out this postcode. So I punched the postcode into maps to find it is a random street I have never visited before and I have no reason to visit it. I wish I had have gone. Maybe the universe was trying to show me something. It was you from the future trying to send your past self a message. Quick, it's not too late. I am 100% sure I vividly remember a dog that apparently doesn't exist. When I was 16 we lived on the other side of the province and my uncle had this little Jack Russell named Crew. Crew went missing for several months and then turned up at a humane society over an hour away and we were all shocked this little dog has made it so far. Anyway, that was almost 20 years ago and the other day I was talking to my parents and was like, you know, whenever I hear about Jack Russells I think about Crew and that stunt he pulled and they had no idea what I was talking about. Insisted my uncle had never had such a dog. I must have dreamed it, etc. Honestly, anyone else who would have remembered this dog has been dead for a long time and I don't even have any pictures of my uncle. I have absolutely no way to prove this dog existed, but I'm sure that he did. They may have just forgotten. My parents are like this as well. Not that long ago I was telling them about a letter I had written to my dad while he was away a few years ago. They both insisted I must have dreamt it, but I found it not long after. Sometimes people can be forgetful. It doesn't necessarily mean Crew didn't exist. My friend Sarah was in a nightclub, drunk off her face, when she got an overwhelming urge to tell a total stranger that her leg hurts. All a bit strange, she ignores it but it doesn't stop, so she walks up to this guy and says, "I know this is crazy but I've got a huge urge to tell you my leg hurts." I know that's crazy. Again, sorry, but he bursts into tears. Turns out his dad had just died and they made a pact before that if there was an afterlife he would get a message to him saying a totally random phrase, so there could be no mistakes, which they decided was "I've hurt my leg." Man, that's wicked cool. So this has always bothered me. I was 13 years old at the time and my dad was a coal miner. He worked third shift, known as the hoot owl shift, which was midnight to noon. As such, he got home around 2 PM and slept till around 9. Got up, had dinner with us and left for work. My dad was always pretty gruff and constantly yelled at us if my younger brother or I made too much noise and woke him up after getting home from school, which as an adult now I completely understand. So one day I did something to wake him up. I forget what. Anyways, he calls me back to the bedroom and I'm expecting to get a dressing down, but he just looked at me and said, "It's okay. Come over here and give me a hug." What 13-year-old boy wants to hug their dad? I kinda squirmed a bit and he followed up with, "What if something happened to me and just laid there all grizzled and tired?" I didn't hug him. That night there was an accident in the mine. He saved everyone on his crew, including the one person he went back in for. His was the only death, and I'm convinced he knew it was gonna happen. I'll never forget his eyes that day. If someone asked you for a hug, give it to them. I love you, Dad. I had a very important document that I only ever kept in one place. I kept it in the top drawer of a small filing cabinet. I never moved it and would always see it in that drawer whenever I opened it for whatever reason. The day came that I needed it now and I didn't sweat it because I knew exactly where it was. Well, I'd be damned if it wasn't there. Cue panic attack. I tore that filing cabinet up. I removed everything and spread it out, flipped papers over, dug through envelopes, shook everything out, shined a flashlight all through the emptied cabinet in case it was somehow stuck to the sides. I mean, it was not there. I can assure you no one took it or was messing with me. I was so frustrated. I even looked through other parts of my house, but I knew it wouldn't be in any of those places and it wasn't. I was intermittently going back to that dumb filing cabinet. No luck. Super irritated, I searched the rest of the house again and, on my way back downstairs where my filing cabinet was, I called out in frustration, "Okay, bring it back." I don't know who I thought I was talking to because I was alone, but you guessed it, I found it in the top drawer of my filing cabinet where it should have been in the first place. I was relieved and totally freaked out. You've been visited by the Good Policy Grandpa. You will be blessed with good economics and healthcare, but only if you comment "Sleep Well Burner." If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.